The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning in July of 1882, carried by a young messenger who looked like he had ridden through hell to deliver it, and Quinn Nathaniel's hands trembled as he unfolded the yellowed paper to read the name that would change everything. Margaret Elizabeth Sanders. The problem was, the woman standing on the platform at Johnson City's train depot 3 weeks later introduced herself as Lucy Jane Morrison. Quinn stood there in the blazing Texas heat, his worn Stetson shading eyes that had seen 26 hard years of ranching, cattle drives, and lonely nights under endless stars. The woman before him was nothing like the carefully composed photograph he had received 2 months prior. That photograph showed a stern-faced woman with dark hair pulled severely back, thin lips pressed into a disapproving line, and eyes that seemed to judge the world with cold calculation. The woman standing before him now had honey-colored hair that caught the sunlight despite being pinned up under her traveling bonnet, eyes the color of creek water in summer, and a mouth that looked like it smiled often, even though right now it was pressed tight with obvious anxiety. "Miss Sanders?" Quinn asked, his voice rough from disuse. He spent more time talking to horses and cattle than people these days. The woman's face went pale beneath the dust of travel. Her fingers clutched a small carpetbag so tightly her knuckles showed white. "I can explain," she said, and her voice was softer than he expected, with a slight tremor that spoke of fear rather than deceit. Quinn should have turned around right then. Should have told her to get back on that train and return to wherever she came from. But something in her eyes held him frozen, something desperate and honest and terrified all at once. "Then you better start explaining, madam," he said, "because I sent money for a ticket for Margaret Elizabeth Sanders, and I was expecting to marry Margaret Elizabeth Sanders today before noon, just like we agreed in our letters." The woman glanced around the platform. A few townspeople were already watching with undisguised curiosity. Johnson City was small enough that a mail-order bride arriving was news, and the wrong mail-order bride arriving was scandal. "Please," she whispered, stepping closer. "Not here. Can we go somewhere private? I promise I will tell you everything, and then if you want to send me back, I will understand. But please, just give me a chance to explain." Quinn studied her for a long moment. Every practical bone in his body screamed at him to refuse, to demand answers right there on that platform, to protect himself from whatever scheme this might be. But something in her desperation called to something in him, some deep loneliness that recognized its mirror in another soul. "My wagon is just outside," he said finally. "We can talk on the ride to my ranch. It is about 40 minutes out of town." Relief flooded her face so completely that tears sprang to her eyes. "Thank you," she breathed. "Thank you so much." He picked up her trunk, surprised by how light it was, and led the way to where his wagon waited in the shade of the depot's overhang. His 2 horses, Buck and Daisy, stood patient in the heat, their tails swishing at flies. He loaded her trunk into the wagon bed and then offered his hand to help her up onto the bench seat. Her hand was small in his, and he could feel it shaking. Once they were clear of town, rolling through the scrub brush and mesquite that characterized this part of Texas, Quinn finally spoke. "All right then, let us hear it." Lucy took a deep breath and clasped her hands in her lap. "My name is Lucy Jane Morrison," she began. "I am Margaret's cousin, was Margaret's cousin." The past tense caught Quinn's attention immediately. "Margaret died 6 weeks ago," Lucy continued, her voice steady now that she had begun. "Fever took her in 3 days. It was fast and awful, and there was nothing anyone could do." Quinn felt a strange pang at that. He had never met Margaret Sanders, had only exchanged a dozen letters with her over the past 4 months, but he had built a life in his mind around those letters. had imagined a future. "I am sorry for your loss," he said, and meant it. "Thank you," Lucy said quietly. "We were not particularly close, but family is family. At least, that is what I thought." Her voice turned bitter. "After Margaret died, her parents, my aunt and uncle, they decided that since the arrangement was already made, since you had already sent money for the ticket, I should come instead." Quinn's jaw tightened. "They decided." "They insisted," Lucy corrected, and now he could hear the anger beneath her words. "Margaret and I, were about the same age. I am 22, she was 23. They said it made no difference, that a bride was a bride, that you would not care as long as someone showed up to cook and clean and give you children." "That is not," Quinn started, then stopped. Was it not? Had he not in some way thought exactly that? He had wanted a wife, a partner, someone to share the burden of running his ranch and building a life. Had he cared specifically about Margaret Sanders as a person, or had he just wanted a woman, any woman, to fill the role? The thought shamed him. "They did not even let me write to you," Lucy continued. "They said it would complicate things, that I should just come and explain in person. They said men out west did not care about such details." She turned to look at him then, and her eyes were blazing. "They said if you rejected me, it would serve me right for being so difficult all these years." "Difficult how?" A bitter laugh escaped her. "I refused to marry the man they chose for me back in Ohio. He was 53 years old, a business associate of my uncle's, and he had already buried 2 wives. They called me ungrateful and selfish and said I was too particular by half. When Margaret died, they saw an opportunity to be rid of me and told me it was this or the streets." Quinn absorbed this in silence, the wagon creaking along the rutted road. The sun beat down mercilessly and heat shimmered off the red dirt. A hawk circled overhead, riding the thermals, and somewhere in the distance a coyote called. "So you came," he said finally. "I came," she agreed. "I know it was wrong. I know I should have found a way to write to you to tell you the truth. But I had no money for a telegram, and they watched me every moment to make sure I got on that train. I hoped, that maybe if I could just explain in person, you might understand. Or at least you might give me time to figure out what to do next." Quinn was quiet for a long moment, thinking. His ranch appeared on the horizon, a modest spread with a barn, a small house, and corrals spreading out in neat lines. It was not much, but it was his, earned through 15 years of hard work since he had left his father's failing farm in Missouri at age 11 and made his own way. "Those letters," he said finally. "The ones I received from Margaret, did you write any of them?" Lucy shook her head. "No. Those were all her. I did not even know about the correspondence until after she died." "And the photograph?" "That was Margaret." Quinn nodded slowly. "So you are not the woman I have been writing to, not the woman in the photograph, and not even the woman whose name was on the telegram." "No," Lucy said quietly. "I am not. And I understand if you want to send me back. I do not have money for a ticket, but I can work to earn it. I can cook and clean, and so I learn quickly. If you could just give me a few weeks, maybe I could earn enough to get somewhere else, somewhere I could start over." They had reached the ranch now, and Quinn pulled the wagon up in front of the house. He sat there for a moment, reins loose in his hands, staring at the home he had built with his own 2 hands over the past 5 years. He had been so lonely. That was the truth of it, the thing he barely admitted to himself in the darkest hours of the night. The ranch was doing well enough. He had good water, decent grazing, and a small herd of cattle that was slowly growing. He had everything a man was supposed to want, everything except someone to share it with. The letters from Margaret had given him hope. Not because of who she was specifically, but because they represented the possibility of something more. Of conversations over breakfast, of someone to notice when he came home, of building something together instead of always being alone. Now here was Lucy Jane Morrison, not the woman he had been expecting, but a woman who needed help just as much as he needed company. He turned to look at her. She was watching him with those creek water eyes, her whole future hanging on his next words. "I told the preacher I would be bringing a bride to marry today before noon," Quinn said slowly. "I told him to expect us around 11. Lucy's eyes widened. "I know, but surely under the circumstances, Quinn interrupted. "You need a husband and I need a wife. Your name is different than what I expected, and your face does not match the photograph, but the practical matters remain the same. I have a ranch that needs 2 pairs of hands. You need a home and protection. Those letters I exchanged with your cousin, they told me she was looking for a fresh start and a partnership. Are you looking for the same thing?" Lucy stared at him. "You cannot be serious." "I am completely serious," Quinn said, "but I want to be clear about what I am offering. This would be a real marriage. I'm not looking for a housekeeper I have to pay. I am looking for a wife, a partner, someone to build a life with. I know that is asking a lot from someone you do not know, and I know you have every reason not to trust men right now given how your family treated you. So I am going to make you a promise." He shifted on the bench to face her fully. "If you marry me today, I will give you 3 months. 3 months to decide if you want to stay. If at the end of that time you want to leave, I will give you money for a ticket to anywhere you want to go and enough extra to get you started somewhere new. No questions asked, no obligations. But if you stay, then you stay as my true wife and we build this life together. What do you say?" Lucy's breath had quickened and he could see the pulse fluttering at her throat. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for someone you do not even know?" Quinn considered the question. "Because I remember what it is like to have no choices," he said finally. "I remember being 11 years old and hungry and desperate, running from a father who drank away every penny and beat me when the whiskey made him mean. I remember thinking I would die before I reached freedom. Someone helped me once, gave me work when they could have turned me away. It saved my life. Maybe this is my chance to return the favor." He saw the moment she decided, saw it in the way her shoulders straightened and her chin lifted and something fierce and determined came into her eyes. 3 months, she said, "and then I decide." 3 months, Quinn agreed. He hopped down from the wagon and came around to help her down. This time when she took his hand, it was steady. "We should probably get cleaned up," he said, glancing at the sun. "It is almost 10 now. We need to be in town by 11 if we are going to make this happen before noon." Lucy nodded, and Quinn led her into the house. It was small but clean, with a main room that served as kitchen and living space, a single bedroom, and a small addition out back that served as a washroom. He had built it all himself, and he felt a strange nervousness as he watched Lucy look around. "It is not much," he said. "It is yours," she replied. "That is more than most people have." He showed her to the washroom where she could clean up from the journey, and he went to change into his best clothes, a dark suit he had bought special for this occasion. His hands shook slightly as he buttoned his shirt, and he had to force himself to breathe slowly. This was insane. He was about to marry a complete stranger, a woman who had arrived under false pretenses, a woman whose face he had never seen until an hour ago. But when Lucy emerged from the washroom 20 minutes later, her hair neatly pinned and her traveling dress brushed clean of dust, something in Quinn's chest tightened. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. There was a strength in her bearing, a determination in her eyes that spoke of someone who had survived difficult things and come through unbroken. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," she confirmed. They rode back into Johnson City in silence, but it was a different silence than before. This one felt charged with possibility, with the weight of the decision they were both making. The church was a small white building at the end of Main Street, and Reverend Thomas was waiting for them on the steps. He was an older man with kind eyes and a weathered face that had seen much of life's hardness. "Quinn," he greeted. "And you must be Miss Sanders." "Actually," Quinn said, and then paused. How did one explain this situation? But Lucy stepped forward with surprising confidence. "Actually, Reverend, my name is Lucy Morrison. There was a death in the family and I came in my cousin's place. Quinn knows the situation and we have decided to proceed anyway. I hope that is not a problem." Reverend Thomas looked between them, his expression thoughtful. "It is unusual," he said finally. "But these are unusual times and people come to the West for fresh starts. If you are both certain this is what you want, I will not stand in the way." "We are certain," Quinn said, and was surprised to find he meant it. "Then let us proceed," Reverend Thomas said. They followed him into the cool dimness of the church. A few wooden pews lined either side of a center aisle, and sunlight streamed through simple glass windows. It was plain and unadorned, but there was something peaceful about it. The ceremony was brief. Reverend Thomas had them stand before him and asked them to join hands. Lucy's fingers were cold despite the heat of the day, and Quinn gave them a gentle squeeze, trying to offer reassurance. "Do you, Quinn Nathaniel, take Lucy Morrison to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do," Quinn said, his voice steady. "And do you, Lucy Morrison, take Quinn Nathaniel to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Lucy's voice was barely above a whisper, but clear. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Quinn, you may kiss your bride." Quinn froze. Somehow in all his thinking about this moment, he had not considered this part. He looked at Lucy and saw his own uncertainty reflected back at him. But they had committed to this, and backing away now would only make things more awkward. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. She did not. Their lips met in the briefest of touches, barely more than a brush of contact, but Quinn felt it like lightning through his entire body. When they pulled apart, Lucy's cheeks were flushed pink and Quinn suspected his were too. Reverend Thomas smiled. "Congratulations," he said warmly. "I have the marriage certificate here for you both to sign." They signed their names, Lucy's handwriting neat and precise, Quinn's rougher but legible. Reverend Thomas signed as witness, and just like that, it was done. They were married. Quinn paid the reverend and thanked him, and then they walked back out into the blazing noon sun as husband and wife. "I suppose we should get some supplies while we are in town," Quinn said, trying to sound normal despite the surreal quality of everything that had just happened. "Unless you would rather head straight back to the ranch." "Supplies would be good," Lucy said. "I should see what you have and what we might need." They walked to Johnson's Mercantile, and Quinn was acutely aware of Lucy beside him, of the fact that she was now his wife. People they passed called out greetings and congratulations, having clearly heard about the wedding. Small towns kept no secrets. Inside the Mercantile, the proprietor, Samuel Johnson, for whom the town was named, greeted them warmly. "Quinn, congratulations on your marriage. And this must be the lovely bride." "Thank you, Samuel," Quinn said. "This is my wife, Lucy. My wife." The words felt strange in his mouth. "Pleased to meet you, madam," Samuel said. "What can I get for you folks today?" Lucy stepped forward with an assurance that surprised Quinn. "I will need to see what is already stocked at the ranch. But for now, perhaps flour, sugar, coffee, and some dried beans. Also, do you have any fabric? I noticed the curtains in the house could use replacing, and I will need to make myself some work dresses suitable for ranch life." She moved through the store with the efficiency of someone who knew exactly what she was looking for, and Quinn found himself following along, mostly just carrying what she selected. She asked him questions about what he liked to eat, what supplies he typically kept on hand, whether he had a good root cellar for storage. Practical questions, the kind a wife should ask, and Quinn answered them as best he could. By the time they finished, they had 2 full crates of supplies, and Quinn's wallet was significantly lighter. But watching Lucy examine fabric and select practical necessities, he felt something ease in his chest. She was not treating this as a temporary arrangement. She was acting like someone who intended to make a home. They loaded everything into the wagon and started the journey back to the ranch. The sun was past its zenith now, the worst heat of the day settling over the land like a heavy blanket. "Thank you," Lucy said suddenly, "for going through with it, for not sending me back." Quinn glanced at her. "Thank you for taking a chance on a stranger. I know that took courage. Or desperation," she said with a wry smile. "Sometimes those amount to the same thing," Quinn replied. They rode in comfortable silence for a while, and then Lucy spoke again. "Tell me about the ranch. How long have you had it?" "About 5 years," Quinn said. "I worked on other people's ranches from the time I was 11 until I was 21, saved every penny I could. When I had enough, I filed a claim on this land and started building. It has been slow going, but I am making progress. Right now I have about 200 head of cattle, a dozen horses, some chickens, and 2 milk cows. The land has good water from a creek that runs year-round, and the grazing is decent if you know how to manage it." "You work it all alone?" "Mostly," Quinn admitted. "During cattle drives I hire some help, but day-to-day, yes, it is just me, or it was." He glanced at her. "I am hoping that with 2 of us we can expand, maybe add some crops, increase the herd." Lucy nodded thoughtfully. "I know how to work," she said. "I am not afraid of hard labor. My parents died when I was 12, and I have been working in my aunt and uncle's household ever since. I can cook, clean, sew, preserve food, tend animals. I learn quickly if there is something I do not know." "Your parents," Quinn said gently. "What happened?" "Cholera," Lucy said quietly. "It swept through our town in Ohio, took my parents and my younger brother all within a week. My aunt and uncle took me in because they had no choice, but they never let me forget it was an obligation rather than a kindness. I have been earning my keep ever since." Quinn felt a surge of anger at these people he had never met. "You deserved better than that." "Perhaps," Lucy said. "But it made me strong. It taught me I could survive anything. That is worth something." They reached the ranch, and Quinn helped Lucy down from the wagon. Together they unloaded the supplies and carried them into the house. It felt natural somehow, working alongside her, even though they barely knew each other. Once everything was inside, an awkward silence fell. The sun was lowering now, late afternoon stretching into evening, and they were alone in this house together. Married but strangers. "I should start dinner," Lucy said finally. "If you could show me where everything is." Quinn showed her the kitchen area, the shelves where he kept supplies, the wood stove, the dishes. Lucy took it all in with quick efficiency, and within minutes she was pulling out ingredients and beginning to work. "Is there anything you do not eat?" she asked. "Anything you particularly like?" "I am not particular," Quinn said. "I have been cooking for myself for so long that anything someone else makes is bound to be an improvement." Lucy smiled at that, a real smile that lit up her whole face, and Quinn felt his breath catch. "Why do not you tend to the animals?" she suggested. "By the time you are done, dinner should be ready." Quinn nodded and escaped outside, grateful for something practical to do. He checked on the cattle, made sure the horses had water, gathered eggs from the chickens, and milked the cows. The familiar routine calmed him, gave him time to process everything that had happened today. He had woken up this morning expecting to marry Margaret Sanders, a stern-faced woman from Ohio, who he had never met but had been corresponding with for months. Instead, he had married Lucy Morrison, her cousin, a woman whose face did not match the photograph and whose name did not match the telegram. And somehow, impossibly, it felt right. When he returned to the house, the smell of cooking food made his stomach growl. Lucy had set the table with his simple dishes and was just pulling a pan of cornbread from the oven. "Perfect timing," she said. "Go wash up and we can eat." Quinn washed his hands and face in the basin, then joined her at the table. She had made beans with salt pork, fried potatoes, and the cornbread, simple food but more substantial than most meals he made for himself. They ate in silence at first, both hungry from the long day. But gradually they began to talk, small things at first. Lucy asked about the neighboring ranches, about the town, about the climate and what to expect from the seasons. Quinn asked about her life in Ohio, what she liked to do, what she hoped for. The conversation flowed more easily than Quinn expected. Lucy was sharp and funny, with observations that made him laugh. She had a way of seeing the world that was both practical and surprisingly hopeful, given what she had been through. After dinner, Lucy insisted on cleaning up while Quinn checked the property one more time before dark. When he came back inside, she was wiping down the last of the dishes, and the kitchen was spotless. Then came the moment they had both been avoiding. "About sleeping arrangements," Quinn said awkwardly. "The house only has one bedroom, but I can sleep out in the barn or make up a bedroll here in the main room. I do not want you to feel pressured or uncomfortable." Lucy turned to face him, and he saw her swallow hard. "We are married," she said quietly. "I know we do not know each other, and I appreciate you offering to sleep separately. But I think, if we are going to make this work, we need to try to build something real. That does not mean we have to, I am not suggesting we should immediately." She trailed off, her cheeks flaming red. "I understand," Quinn said quickly, trying to save them both from further embarrassment. "We can share the room, but nothing more, not until we both feel ready." Lucy nodded, relief clear on her face. "Thank you for understanding." They prepared for bed in awkward silence. Lucy changed in the bedroom while Quinn waited outside, and then they switched. When Quinn finally entered the bedroom in his nightshirt, Lucy was already under the covers on the far side of the bed, lying stiff and still. Quinn blew out the lamp and climbed in on his side, careful to leave space between them. The bed was small enough that he could feel the heat of her body, could hear her breathing in the darkness. "Lucy," he said quietly. "Yes, I meant what I said today. You have 3 months, no obligations. But I hope you will give this a real chance. Give us a real chance." There was a long pause, and then he heard her whisper, "I will try." "That is all I can ask," Quinn said. He lay awake for a long time, listening to Lucy's breathing gradually slow and even out as she fell asleep. This was the strangest day of his life, and yet lying here in the darkness with this woman he barely knew, Quinn felt something he had not felt in years: hope. The next morning, Quinn woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee. For a moment he was disoriented, and then memory flooded back. Lucy. The wedding. His wife. He dressed quickly and emerged to find Lucy already up and working in the kitchen. She had breakfast going, eggs and bacon and more cornbread, and she looked up when he entered with a tentative smile. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," Quinn replied. "You did not have to get up so early." "I am used to it," Lucy said. Besides, ranch life means early mornings, does it not? That it does, Quinn agreed. They ate breakfast together, and then Quinn showed Lucy the full scope of the ranch. They walked the property, and he explained his plans for expansion, the challenges with water during dry spells, the best grazing areas. Lucy listened attentively, asked intelligent questions, and offered suggestions that showed she was thinking seriously about how to make things work. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Quinn handled the heavier work, the cattle and horses, mending fences and checking the property. Lucy took over the house, the chickens, the garden plot behind the house that Quinn had started but never had time to properly maintain. She cleaned and organized, made curtains for the windows, cooked meals that were better than anything Quinn had eaten in years. But more than that, they talked. In the evenings after the work was done, they sat on the porch and watched the sun set over the scrubland, and they shared their stories. Lucy told him about growing up in Ohio, about her parents who had loved her, about the loneliness of living with relatives who saw her as a burden. Quinn told her about running away from his father, about the hard years learning to work cattle, about building this ranch from nothing. They learned each other's rhythms, each other's preferences. Quinn discovered that Lucy liked her coffee strong and black, that she sang softly while she worked, that she had a quick temper but it burned out fast. Lucy learned that Quinn was quiet not from unfriendliness, but from habit, that he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, that he was gentle with animals and fiercely protective of what was his. 2 weeks into the marriage, they were working together in the garden when Lucy suddenly sat back on her heels and said, "I think I want to stay." Quinn looked up from where he was weeding. "You still have 2.5 months to decide." "I know," Lucy said, "but I think I already know." Quinn, this is the first time in 10 years I have felt like I have a home, like I belong somewhere. I know we are still getting to know each other, but I feel it. Do you?" Quinn set down his tools and moved to kneel beside her. "I feel it," he admitted. "I have from the beginning. There was something about you, Lucy, even that first day on the train platform. I cannot explain it, but it felt right." Lucy's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I was so scared," she whispered. "Scared you would send me back, scared you would be cruel, scared I was making another terrible mistake. But you have been nothing but kind. You have given me a chance at a real life, Quinn. A life where I am not a burden or an obligation, but a partner." Quinn reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his work-roughened hand. "You are not a burden, Lucy. You are the best thing that has happened to me in longer than I can remember." She leaned into his touch, and then, slowly, they leaned toward each other. This kiss was different from the brief touch in the church. This was real, wanted by both of them. Quinn felt Lucy's hand come up to rest against his chest, felt the way she sighed against his mouth, and something inside him that had been locked away for years began to open. When they pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "Well," Lucy said, a little breathless. "That was worth waiting for." Quinn laughed, a real laugh that came from deep in his chest. "It certainly was." That night when they went to bed, Lucy did not stay on her side of the mattress. She moved closer, and Quinn wrapped an arm around her, pulling her against his chest. She fit perfectly there, her head tucked under his chin, her breath warm against his throat. "Is this all right?" he asked quietly. "It is perfect," Lucy whispered back. They lay like that until sleep claimed them both, and Quinn thought that this simple closeness, was worth more than all the gold in California. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into a month. Lucy bloomed under the freedom and purpose of ranch life. Her cheeks grew pink from the sun, her arms stronger from the work. She proved to be as capable as she had claimed, tackling every challenge with determination. When one of the milk cows got sick, Lucy sat up with it all night, coaxing it to drink and tending it carefully until the fever broke. When a summer storm damaged part of the barn roof, she was up on the ladder beside Quinn, handing him nails and holding boards steady. When coyotes threatened the chicken coop, she stood guard with the shotgun Quinn taught her to use, and she did not flinch when she had to fire it to scare them off. Quinn fell more in love with her every day. It was not the way he had imagined love would be. It was not dramatic declarations or grand gestures. It was Lucy bringing him water while he worked in the heat. It was Quinn noticing she liked wildflowers and bringing her small bouquets when he came in from checking the fence line. It was the way they moved around each other in the small house, learning each other's patterns, anticipating each other's needs. It was coming in exhausted after a long day and having her smile up at him from the stove, eyes bright with genuine pleasure at seeing him. It was lying in bed at night, talking in the darkness about their dreams for the ranch, for their future, until one or both of them fell asleep mid-sentence. It was the morning, 6 weeks after their wedding, when Quinn woke before dawn and turned to find Lucy already awake, watching him in the dim pre-dawn light. "Good morning," he whispered. "Good morning," she whispered back, and then she kissed him, and this kiss was different from all the others. This kiss held intention, invitation. Quinn pulled back to look at her to make sure he was reading this right. "Lucy, I am your wife," she said softly, "and I want to be your wife in every way if you want that too." "I want that," Quinn said, his voice rough with emotion. "God, Lucy, I want that more than anything." What followed was tender and slow, full of gentle touches and whispered reassurances. They were both nervous, Lucy because she was inexperienced and Quinn because he cared so much about making this good for her. But they figured it out together, learning each other in this new way, and when it was over, Lucy was crying happy tears against his chest. "Are you all right?" Quinn asked, concerned. "I am more than all right," Lucy said. "I am happy. I did not know I could be this happy." Quinn held her close and knew exactly what she meant. After that, everything shifted again. They were not just partners in work, but truly husband and wife, building a life and a future together. They talked about expanding the herd, about maybe building an addition onto the house, about the children they hoped to have someday. "I want at least 3, Lucy said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the stars come out. "I was lonely being an only child, especially after my parents died. I want our children to have siblings, to have family." "3 sounds good," Quinn agreed. "Maybe 4, Lucy laughed. "Let us start with 1 and see how it goes." "Fair enough," Quinn said, pulling her closer against his side. The 3-month mark came and went without fanfare. They were both too busy with the ranch to make note of it, and it seemed irrelevant anyway. Lucy was not going anywhere, and they both knew it. It was in early October, almost 4 months after Lucy had arrived on that train, that she came to Quinn with news that made his heart soar. "I am pregnant," she said, and her voice was full of wonder and joy and a little bit of fear. Quinn swept her up in his arms, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. "Truly, you are sure?" "I am sure," Lucy laughed. "I saw the doctor in town yesterday when I went for supplies. He confirmed it. We are going to have a baby, Quinn. Next spring, probably May or early June." Quinn set her down carefully, suddenly afraid of being too rough, and she laughed at the expression on his face. "I am not made of glass," she said. "I can still work, still do everything I have been doing. The doctor said so." "Even so," Quinn said, "we need to be careful. You need to rest more, let me handle the heavier work." "We will find a balance," Lucy promised. "But Quinn, we are going to be parents. Are you happy?" "Happy does not begin to cover it," Quinn said. He pulled her close, his hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. "You have given me everything, Lucy. A home, a purpose, and now a family. I love you. I should have said it before now, but I love you so much it scares me sometimes." Lucy's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I have from almost the beginning, but I was too afraid to admit it. Afraid it was too fast, too soon, too impossible. But it is not impossible, is it? We made it real." "We made it real," Quinn agreed, and then he kissed her, pouring everything he felt into it. The next months were full of preparation. Quinn built a cradle from oak, working on it in the evenings by lamplight while Lucy sewed tiny clothes. They talked to the neighboring ranchers, the Callahans who lived 5 miles to the north and had 6 children of their own. Mrs. Callahan gave Lucy advice and handed down baby clothes her own children had outgrown. Winter came to the Texas plains. Not the bitter cold of Ohio that Lucy remembered from her childhood, but chilly enough that they were grateful for the wood stove and the warm blankets. They spent the long evenings planning, dreaming, building their future in words. Lucy's belly grew round, and Quinn found himself constantly amazed by it, by the life they had created together. He talked to the baby, his hand on Lucy's stomach, telling it about the ranch it would be born into, the life they would build together. "What if I am not a good mother?" Lucy asked one night in late winter. "What if I do not know what to do?" "Then we will figure it out together," Quinn said. "Just like we have figured out everything else. You are going to be an amazing mother, Lucy. I know it." Spring came early that year, the wildflowers blooming in riots of color across the scrubland. Lucy was huge now, uncomfortable and eager to be done with pregnancy, though she tried not to complain. "I feel like a cow," she groaned one evening. "A beautiful cow," Quinn said, and dodged the pillow she threw at him. The baby came on a warm night in May under a sky full of stars. Quinn rode hard to fetch the doctor, and Mrs. Callahan came to help. The labor was long and difficult, and Quinn paced outside like a caged animal, terrified by every sound he heard from the bedroom. But when dawn broke and he heard the thin wail of a baby crying, he thought his heart might burst from his chest. The doctor emerged, tired but smiling. "Congratulations, Quinn. You have a son." A son. Quinn could barely process it. "Can I see them?" "Of course. Your wife is asking for you." Quinn went into the bedroom and found Lucy propped up in bed, exhausted and sweaty and more beautiful than he had ever seen her. In her arms was a tiny bundle, and when Quinn approached, she pulled the blanket back to reveal a red-faced, squalling infant. "Our son," Lucy said softly. "Quinn, we have a son." Quinn sat carefully on the edge of the bed and looked down at the baby. He had dark hair like Quinn's and seemed to have Lucy's nose. He was perfect. "What should we name him?" Lucy asked. They had discussed names but never settled on one. Now, looking at his son, Quinn knew. "Jacob," he said. "Jacob Nathaniel, after your father." Lucy's eyes filled with tears. She had told him once that her father's name had been Jacob, that he had been a good man and a loving father, and that she still missed him every day. "Jacob," she whispered. "That is perfect." Quinn reached out and carefully touched his son's tiny hand. Immediately, the baby's fingers curled around his, gripping with surprising strength. "Hello, Jacob," Quinn said softly. "Welcome to the world. Your mother and I have been waiting for you." The next weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and constant feedings, but Quinn would not have traded them for anything. He watched Lucy with their son and saw her bloom into motherhood, saw the fierce love and protection in every gesture. He helped when he could, walking the floor with Jacob when he fussed at night so Lucy could sleep, changing diapers, just sitting and marveling at this tiny life they had created. Jacob grew from a newborn into an infant, and then a baby who smiled and cooed. He had his mother's creek water eyes and his father's stubborn determination. The ranch continued to thrive, and Quinn hired a hand to help with the work so he could spend more time with his family. When Jacob was 6 months old, Lucy told Quinn she wanted to try for another baby. "Are you sure?" Quinn asked. "We can wait if you need more time." "I am sure," Lucy said. "I told you I wanted at least 3. We should get started on number 2. Quinn laughed and kissed her. "Well, if you insist." Their second child, a daughter they named Caroline Rose, came just over a year after Jacob. She was tiny and perfect, with strawberry blonde hair and a temperament that was somehow both sweet and fierce. Lucy said she got both from her father, and Quinn could not argue. The years passed in a golden blur. The ranch expanded, Quinn's careful management and Lucy's hard work paying off in increased herds and improved land. They built an addition onto the house, adding 2 more bedrooms and a larger kitchen. They bought more cattle, bred their horses, built a new barn. Jacob grew into a sturdy boy who followed his father everywhere, wanting to learn everything about ranching. Caroline was quieter but no less determined, with a love for the horses and a gift for gentling even the wildest colt. When Jacob was 4 and Caroline was 3, Lucy gave birth to their third child, another son they named Thomas William. He was a surprise baby, arriving 2 weeks early but healthy and strong. "I thought we said we would stop at 3, Quinn teased Lucy as she nursed Thomas. "We did," Lucy agreed, "but I think 1 more would be nice, even out the numbers." 4, Quinn said. "You want 4 children." "I want a big family," Lucy said. "I want noise and chaos and love filling this house. Is that so terrible?" "Not terrible at all," Quinn said, leaning in to kiss her forehead. "I would give you 12 children if you wanted them." "Let us not get carried away," Lucy laughed. Their 4th and final child, a daughter they named Margaret Elizabeth, after Lucy's cousin and the woman who should have been his bride, came when Jacob was 7, Caroline was 6, and Thomas was 2. Lucy had suggested the name, saying that Margaret's death had led to their marriage, and it felt right to honor her memory. Quinn agreed, though privately he thought they should also be grateful to Lucy's terrible aunt and uncle, without whom Lucy never would have been sent to Texas. He would never thank them for their cruelty, but he could acknowledge that their actions had inadvertently given him everything he held dear. Margaret was a happy baby, easy and smiley, and she completed their family perfectly. The years continued to pass. Jacob grew tall and strong, taking after his father in looks and temperament. He had a gift for working cattle and managing the ranch, and Quinn knew the spread would be in good hands when he was ready to take over. Caroline had her mother's sharp mind and her father's work ethic. She learned to read early and devoured every book she could get her hands on, but she also worked the ranch as capably as any of the hands they employed. She could rope and ride and shoot, but she also kept meticulous records of the herd, tracked breeding lines, and helped Quinn plan for the future. Thomas was the charmer of the family, quick with a smile and a joke, but also steady and reliable when it mattered. He had a way with horses that bordered on magical, and visitors came from other ranches to have him work with their difficult animals. Margaret was the baby, doted on by her older siblings but never spoiled. She had her mother's gift for hospitality and her father's protective nature, and she kept the whole family organized and running smoothly. Lucy and Quinn watched their children grow with a mixture of pride and bittersweet awareness of time passing. The ranch that had started as a dream for 2 had become a legacy for 6. On a summer evening when Jacob was 21, Caroline 19, Thomas 17, and Margaret 15, the whole family gathered on the expanded porch to watch the sunset. It was something they still did when they could, a tradition that had started in those early days when it was just Quinn and Lucy learning to be husband and wife. "I was thinking," Jacob said. That if you and Ma agree, I would like to start building a house on the north section. I have been courting Sarah Callahan, and I think I am going to ask her to marry me." Quinn and Lucy exchanged glances, not surprised. They had seen this coming for months. "I think that would be wonderful," Lucy said warmly. "Sarah is a lovely girl, and the Callahans are good people." "We can work out the details," Quinn added. "But yes, son, I think it is time you had your own place. Not too far, though. Your mother would never forgive me if you moved so far she could not visit her grandchildren whenever she wanted." "Grandchildren," Jacob laughed. "I have not even proposed yet." "Details," Lucy said with a wave of her hand, and everyone laughed. Caroline spoke up next. "I have been thinking about teaching. There are talks of building a real schoolhouse in Johnson City, and they will need a teacher. I would like to apply." "You would be excellent at that," Quinn said. "You have the patience and the knowledge. Plus the students would be terrified to misbehave," Thomas added. "You are scarier than any of us when you want to be." Caroline swatted him, but she was smiling. Margaret was quiet, and Lucy reached over to squeeze her hand. "What about you, sweetheart? Any plans you want to share?" "Not yet," Margaret said. "I am still figuring out what I want, but I think I would like to stay here on the ranch for a while longer if that is all right. Help you and Pa. Maybe take over more of the house management so you can rest more, Ma." Lucy smiled. "I would like that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn gold and orange and finally purple as the sun set over the land Quinn had built into a home. "You ever think about that day I arrived?" Lucy asked quietly, so only Quinn could hear. "When my name did not match the telegram and my face did not match the photograph." "I think about it often," Quinn admitted. "How close we came to missing all of this. If you had not gotten on that train, if I had sent you back, if we had not taken that chance." "You took the chance," Lucy corrected. "You were the one who offered me a choice, who gave me a home when I had nowhere else to go." "We took the chance together," Quinn said. "And we have been taking chances together ever since." He pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, feeling the solid warmth of her against his side. Around them, their children talked and laughed, their voices carrying across the ranch that had become a home. "I love you, Lucy Nathaniel," Quinn said. "I have loved you from almost the first moment I saw you on that train platform, looking scared and brave all at once." "I love you too," Lucy said. "My cowboy who married me anyway before noon, even though nothing about me was what you expected." "You were better," Quinn said. "You were everything." The stars came out, the same stars that had watched over them on their wedding night 16 years ago. The same stars that had seen them struggle and grow and build something beautiful together. And as Quinn sat there surrounded by his family, on land he had carved from nothing, with the woman who had arrived on a lie but stayed for love, he knew he would not change a single thing. Not the name on the telegram that did not match her face. Not the rushed wedding before noon. Not the risk they had both taken on each other. Because all of it, every confusing and terrifying and wonderful moment, had led them here. Home. Jacob did marry Sarah Callahan that fall, in the same small church where Quinn and Lucy had married. They built a house on the north section of the ranch, close enough for Sunday dinners but far enough for independence. Within 2 years, they gave Quinn and Lucy their first grandchild, a boy they named Quinn Jacob, and Lucy cried happy tears when Sarah told them. Caroline took the teaching position in Johnson City and proved to be an excellent instructor, firm but fair, inspiring her students to love learning the way she did. She eventually married the new doctor who came to town, a kind man named Peter who shared her love of books and long conversations. Thomas stayed on the ranch and became known throughout the region for his way with horses. He married a girl from Austin, a spirited woman named Anna who could ride as well as he could, and they had 4 children who grew up wild and happy on the Texas plains. Margaret, true to her word, stayed home longer than the others. She helped Lucy run the household and learned everything her mother could teach her about managing a ranch, about being strong and capable and kind. When she finally did marry at 23, it was to a young rancher from the next county over, and she ran her own spread with the same efficiency and love she had learned from watching her parents. Quinn and Lucy grew older together, silver threading through their hair, lines deepening around their eyes and mouths. The ranch was passed down to Jacob when Quinn decided he was ready to step back, but Quinn never fully retired. He still went out to check the fences, still helped with the spring roundup, still gave advice when his son asked for it. Lucy kept her garden and her chickens, baked bread for the seemingly endless stream of grandchildren who appeared at their door, and hosted Sunday dinners that brought the whole family together. They added a room onto the house specifically for gatherings, with a table long enough to seat everyone. Sometimes as Lucy looked around that table at her children and grandchildren, at the family she and Quinn had built from nothing, she had to excuse herself for a moment to compose herself. Quinn always found her when she did this, wrapped his arms around her and held her close. Happy tears. He would ask, though he already knew the answer. The happiest, she would confirm, on their 20th wedding anniversary, Quinn surprised Lucy with a trip to San Antonio. They had never traveled much, too busy with the ranch and the children, but now with Jacob capable of managing things and the youngest children old enough to be left with their older siblings, Quinn insisted. They stayed in a real hotel, ate in restaurants, and walked through the streets like tourists. Lucy was enchanted by the city, by the Alamo and the River Walk and the Spanish missions. But her favorite part was the evening Quinn took her to a small jeweler and bought her a proper wedding ring to replace the simple band he had given her 20 years before. "You did not have to do this," Lucy said as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It was silver with a small diamond, modest but beautiful. "I wanted to," Quinn said. "I wanted you to have something that showed how much you mean to me, how much you have always meant to me." Lucy looked down at the ring, at how it caught the lamplight, and then up at her husband. He had aged, his dark hair now more silver than black, his face weathered by sun and wind and years of hard work. But his eyes were the same, steady and true and full of love. "You have given me everything, Quinn," she said softly. "A home, a family, a life I never dreamed I could have. This ring is beautiful, but it is not the ring that matters. It is the man who gave it to me." Quinn pulled her close and kissed her, right there on the street in San Antonio, and Lucy kissed him back with all the passion and love of 20 years of marriage. When they returned home, the whole family was waiting to see the ring and hear about their trip. The grandchildren crowded around Lucy, wanting to touch the diamond, and the older children teased Quinn about being romantic. "Your father has always been romantic," Lucy said firmly. "He just shows it in quiet ways." That night, lying in bed in their room, Quinn asked Lucy if she had any regrets. "Regrets," Lucy repeated. "About what?" "About coming here," Quinn said. "About marrying a stranger sight unseen, about the hard years, about anything." Lucy turned to face him, her hand coming up to cup his cheek. "Not one," she said firmly. "Quinn, I was sent here against my will by people who did not care what happened to me. I arrived terrified and desperate, lying about who I was, expecting to be rejected and sent back to nothing. And instead I found everything. I found a partner and a love and a life that has exceeded every dream I ever had. How could I possibly regret that?" "I am glad," Quinn said, "because I do not regret it either. Not for one single moment." You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Lucy Nathaniel. The day you stepped off that train was the day my real life began." They held each other in the darkness, two people who had taken an impossible chance and turned it into something beautiful. The years continued to pass, as years do. The grandchildren grew, and some of them started having children of their own, making Quinn and Lucy great-grandparents. The ranch continued to thrive under Jacob's management, and the Nathaniel name became known throughout Texas as belonging to good people who could be trusted. Quinn's health began to decline when he was in his 60s, not dramatically but noticeably. He moved slower, tired more easily, had to give up some of the heavier work. Lucy fussed over him, made him rest, brought him cool water on hot days and warm blankets on cold nights. "I am not an invalid," Quinn grumbled one afternoon. "No, you are a stubborn old man who does not know when to take care of himself," Lucy retorted. "So I am doing it for you." "Old," Quinn said, feigning offense. "I am only 63. "And I am 61, which makes us both old," Lucy said practically. "Now drink your water and stop complaining." Quinn drank his water and watched his wife move around the house they had shared for over 40 years. She was still beautiful to him, still the woman he had fallen in love with, even if her hair was now completely silver and her hands were gnarled with age and work. "I love you," he said suddenly. Lucy stopped what she was doing and turned to look at him, a soft smile on her face. "I love you too, Quinn. Always." They lived another decade together, into their 70s. They slowed down but never stopped, still hosting Sunday dinners, still welcoming grandchildren and great-grandchildren, still sitting on the porch in the evenings to watch the sunset. It was on one such evening, with Lucy's head resting on his shoulder and the sunset painting the sky in shades of fire, that Quinn felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. He had worked hard all his life, had built something from nothing, had survived and thrived and created a legacy that would continue long after he was gone. But more than any of that, he had loved and been loved in return. That, in the end, was what mattered. "What are you thinking about?" Lucy asked softly. "About how lucky I am," Quinn said. "About how a telegram with the wrong name and a face that did not match a photograph led me to everything I ever wanted." Lucy lifted her head to look at him, her eyes still the same creek water color they had been 45 years ago when she had stepped off that train. "We were both lucky," she said. "We found each other in the most unlikely way, and we built something beautiful." "We did," Quinn agreed. He took her hand, feeling the wedding ring he had given her all those years ago alongside the anniversary ring from San Antonio. "And I would do it all again, exactly the same way." "Even the parts where I frustrated you?" Lucy asked with a small smile. "Especially those parts," Quinn said. "They kept life interesting." Lucy laughed, and the sound was music to Quinn's ears. They sat together as the sun set and the stars emerged, two people who had taken a chance on each other and won everything. Quinn lived to be 79 years old. He died peacefully in his sleep on a spring night, with Lucy beside him holding his hand. His last words to her were, "I love you," and hers to him were, "Forever." Lucy lived 5 more years after Quinn passed. She stayed on the ranch, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She tended her garden, she baked her bread, and she told stories about her cowboy who had married her anyway before noon. Even though her name did not match the telegram and her face did not match the photograph, she told them how scared she had been, how desperate. How Quinn had offered her a choice when she had none. How they had built a life together from nothing but faith and determination and love. She told them that love did not always look like the stories said it would. Sometimes it was quiet and steady. Sometimes it arrived in the most unexpected ways, wearing the wrong name and the wrong face. But it was still love, and that was what mattered. When Lucy died at 84, peacefully in her sleep like Quinn before her, the whole community mourned. The funeral was held in the same church where she and Quinn had married all those years ago, and it was standing room only. They buried her beside Quinn on a hill overlooking the ranch under a spreading oak tree. The stone read, "Lucy Jane Nathaniel, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and friend. 1860–1944. She took a chance on love, and beside it, Quinn's stone, Quinn Nathaniel, beloved husband, father, grandfather, and friend. 1856–1935. He gave her a choice. Their story became part of family legend, told and retold to each new generation. About how Lucy had arrived in Texas under false pretenses, how Quinn had married her anyway, how they had built something beautiful together against all odds. The ranch stayed in the family, passed down through the generations. Jacob's descendants ran it into the next century, always remembering the couple who had started it all. Always remembering that sometimes the best things in life come from taking chances, from being brave, from looking past what is expected to see what could be. And on summer evenings, when the family gathered for Sunday dinners in the house that Quinn built and Lucy made into a home, they would sometimes look up at the sunset and think of their ancestors. The cowboy and the girl with the wrong name, who had married before noon on a Tuesday in July, and spent the rest of their lives proving that love did not need perfect circumstances to thrive. It just needed two people willing to try. The story of Quinn and Lucy Nathaniel became more than just family history. It became a testament to the power of second chances, of kindness in unexpected moments, of taking risks when everything says to play it safe. Their descendants carried that legacy forward, passing it down through marriages and births, and all the ordinary moments that make up a life. The ranch itself became a landmark in Johnson City. The Nathaniel spread known for its quality cattle and horses, but also for its hospitality. Just as Quinn and Lucy had welcomed anyone who needed help, so too did their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren continue that tradition. Every July, on the anniversary of that first meeting at the train depot, the family gathered at the graves on the hill. They brought flowers, usually wildflowers like the ones Quinn used to pick for Lucy. They told the stories again, keeping the memory alive. And they remembered that once upon a time, in the wild Texas heat of July 1882, a cowboy had looked at a woman whose name did not match the telegram, whose face did not match the photograph, and instead of sending her away, he had offered her a choice. That choice had become a marriage. That marriage had become a love story, and that love story had become a legacy that would last forever.